All right, let's briefly just talk about Megyn Kelly for a minute, okay?
Right.
I mean, I know I've seen you on Twitter with this stuff, and I think I there's been, I
Yeah,
think people can go on
yeah,
Twitter and see that you've been getting into it a little bit with Cenk Uygur, who didn't think that Megyn Kelly should be fired for her latest,
yeah,
insistence that it was okay for blackface. I mean, let's just start with let's start with the blackface question, just more
yeah,
generally. I mean, from my perspective, like I've gone on TV. And I have said, I remember going on TV one time and saying, I can't remember what context, but I was saying somebody had gone off the reservation. And people on
yeah,
Twitter, were like, dude, you got to start thinking about what you're saying
yeah.
because, and I grew up using that. It was just a vernacular, it was a
Right,
colloquialism. And then when you start thinking about it, like you realize like, you know what? I can understand why that would be pretty offensive
yeah,
to people that, the idea that a group of people were sequestered so that we could steal their land and
yeah,
told you can't go off of the reservation. And if you do, and somehow it's like, as opposed to like you're liberating yourself or you're taking,
hmm,
it is somehow you're doing something wrong. And so I stopped using it, but I also think that like I didn't have a history of
right,
maligning Native Americans. And so people were, okay. They were satisfied that I had
right,
learned my lesson.
right.
Is it possible for anybody to take that position with Megyn Kelly? I mean, let's just put aside for a moment that it was clear somebody made a very, very bad professional bet on Megyn Kelly. Okay. They made a
Yeah,
very bad bet, and it was a very expensive bad bet. And they were looking for any reason to get rid of her that could make it seem like it wasn't a function of them making a bad bet. Okay.
right.
So putting that aside for a moment, because then the question is, do you give Megyn Kelly the benefit of the doubt? Who could possibly give Megyn Kelly the benefit of the doubt and why?
That's what made me so upset about Cenk's segment, because he framed it in the sense that it was that she just maybe don't know. People don't know. And the thing is like, if you don't know and you want to imitate a black person, you don't go get tar baby black coal and put on your face, because that is a direct hearkening back to Jim Crow, to the Klan using it in their movies and the Birth of a Nation. That's the imitation, the insulting of black people with this tar baby. If you want to look black, you get a brown hue. And I'm making that distinction because ignorance would tell you that if I want to look black, I'm going to put on a brown face. This is not done in ignorance. This is done intentionally to irritate, to racially irritate the black community. Now, we've insulated ourselves from it to a certain extent where it's like we expect this because every Halloween we have this conversation. So not only do I not extend this grace to Megyn Kelly, and neither should have Cenk Uygur, but I don't extend this to anybody, because you had to research blackface for you to say, oh, I'm going to get this tar baby black color instead of a brown pigmentation, which most African Americans in America are brown versus a true black. You had to have done that. And when you come across it, you make a conscious decision. And this, Sam, mind you, is going underneath the grace of ignorance. We're extending them the grace of saying they're ignorant about it. When you come out of your house and your home and you're tar baby black with white lips, you are intentionally going back to an era of Jim Crow, and you're doing it for the purposes of, I don't know, is your show on radio? Because I don't want to cuss if
No, you can. At this point, who cares about
you're doing it for
radio?
shits and giggles. You're
Right.
literally doing it for shits and giggles. The Trayvon Martin murder, one of the first images that are still being circulated right now is a guy in blackface, tar baby blackface, with a hoodie on, with Skittles, with a Arizona iced tea, and with a bullet wound in his chest. This is never done in ignorance. It's done intentionally. And Megyn Kelly, above all people, who made sure that she reassured the children who are watching Fox News that Jesus was white and Santa Claus was white. I mean, fine. she is well aware. She's 50 something years old. She's paid $23 million a year. She's going to walk away with $69 million a year. She is not ignorant, and to infantilize her in that way in order to insulate her from criticism or being fired is not something that a progressive leader of the independent media should be engaged in. I like Cenk. I actually tried to get on the Young Turks when I first got in this game. I mean, who else was I going to try to get on their show with? But come on, man. He knows this. And I don't get it. I honestly don't get his move on this one.
I mean, all right. Well, I mean, putting aside, what Cenk was thinking, I think just the idea that, like, look, if you're going to go on television, and this is almost distinct from race. I mean, or I should say broader than race. If you're going to be on television, and some people are defending or saying, like, well, why can't we have a conversation about race? It's like, well, if you're going to talk about something that is clearly a sensitive topic and very important to society, you have a responsibility to do a certain amount of research. So, I mean, like, even if she was to say, like, look, I'm a little bit ignorant about this, well, then you know what? You're really, really almost criminally bad at your job. And you should be fired, and you should give back all the money that you're earning, because you should be so embarrassed that as a professional, you would go on without researching the implications of blackface in American history, right? I mean, to clarify, like you're saying, like, if people are going out for Halloween, right? People who are not on television promoting something, but they're just going out for Halloween, like, I don't know. I feel like you could go out, right, as a Holocaust victim, and
Jesus.
People. But honestly, it's like, and people would be sort of like, I think, right to be like a little offended. Like, hey, man, that's not funny or cute. Like, what's going on there? Like, and to go as like to me, it seems like the same thing, and it's not like if you go as a Holocaust victim, it's very specific. If you're going,
it's too specific to not have been researched. Like, you put some thought into this, and you had to have known that this is going to ruffle some feathers. And Sam, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's literally the point. The point of blackface and all of these insulting costumes. Generally, I mean, of course, you do have examples of people who are just clueless, but we're not talking about clueless items. We're talking about people who picked something that is most certainly offensive, no matter how you cut it. They put thought into it, and this is the point. The brutality is the point, and that's what makes this so insidious.
All right, well, let's say I'm going out as Idris Elba, or however you pronounce that guy who should be Bond, that guy, right? I mean, what like, and I put on like bronzer. Where am I on that spectrum?
You're on the spectrum. I'm like, Sam, what are you doing? Just go wash that off and put on the nicest suit that you can, shave your hair, and take off your glasses, and just say that you're Idris Elba. Let's just call it a day.
Right. Right. Or just go as like, I'm the white Idris Elba or whatever.
Yes.
I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy who should be Bond, the guy who should be the next Bond.
Listen, there's imitation that is flattery, but then there's imitation that is mockery, and that's what blackface has always been. There's never been an example, and the fact that that the onus is being placed on black people time and time and damn time again for us to do the education, even of people who are making millions of dollars to do the education, is the part of this equation is so infuriating. Like, no, you did the research to figure out which hue of black you want to go with. You should do the research on your own and pay the consequence for why this was such a bad idea.
And we should say, like, people are very comfortable with certain things being taken off the table in polite society.
Yeah.
Right?
Come on.
Like you can't go on television as a host of a show and, just on multiple occasions burp in the middle of what you're doing, or or fart, and on one hand, you could be like, well, man, it's the human body, And why not, why are we pretending like this doesn't happen? And it's really offensive. Like, I can come up with the exact same, because this expands into, like, how certain comedians can't go on college campuses and deliver certain jokes in some way. Maybe I'm teasing Ted Alexandro a little bit, appearance in a minute. But this concept of, like, really what we're going through, it seems to me, and this dynamic, I think, explains our political moment as much as anything, obviously for broader issues. But the idea that, like, essentially that black people, now they get to have their say in what might be offensive too.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's one step too far for some people.
I mean, I think that's basically the era, and not just black people, obviously, but trans folks, that women, people of color generally. I mean, folks who have been more marginal and disempowered in our society since the beginning now have a little bit of power, and they get to say what they also think is offensive.
Sam, if I got on my show, as small as my show is, and I dropped the F word, not F-U-C-K, but the homophobic slur. If I drop that, there is not going to be a single person in my audience, and rightfully so, who's going to say, well, let's have a conversation about it, and let's educate Ben, because let's make sure that this guy who talks politics all day long and gets paid the coins that I get paid, that I need to be educated about it, and that we need more speech, not less speech. No, we have rightfully determined that there are certain things that are not acceptable, and if you call that being politically correct, I just call it not being a dick. There's no reason for us to do these things when they have been clearly demarcated as a bridge too far for people that you, in the progressive side of the equation, are supposed to be allies. Why are we even having this conversation on the progressive side of the conversation? I understand Megyn Kelly. I understand her trying to play this game. That's what she did at Fox. What I don't understand, and he's cool, I like him, but I don't understand Cenk supporting this.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, like, the conversation, just broadly speaking, has value because we understand also, I think, like, what people who watch Megyn Kelly, to the extent that there are anybody left, who watch Megyn Kelly, what they're thinking about, and, like, what these complaints are, because it does. Again, like, I can't explain what Cenk's what the reasoning is there, but that to me is less relevant than what it sort of, like, this broader political time, I think, is so much about this. Like, basically a large portion of the white people in this country, just resenting,
get off on this,
resenting that non-white males get to choose what is impolite, when it's always been white males who get to choose their parameters as to what's impolite.
Right. I got hip to this, and I know we probably have to get out of here. I got hip to this the day after Hillary Clinton lost. I was scheduled to be at a Tea Party debate. I took it because why not? In Massachusetts. I was right around the corner, so I went, Worcester. And at that rally,
in Worcester? Sweet.
But it was. I came to grips with the reality that this is the point. The brutality is the point. 2 years ago, when the moderator was describing Donald Trump's slurs of Elizabeth Warren and the Pocahontas and all these types of things, the guy who was debating against me said, "Oh no, that's the part I like. I'm glad he does that. I'm not embarrassed by it." This was really the point. There's a big part of our population that enjoys this. And if we don't recognize that, we'll always be playing this game of trying to understand them. The only thing you need to understand is that this is what they enjoy.